Olá, tudo bem? Eu estou aqui com Tatiana Kukareva, que é um dos jornalistas mais importantes do emissora Sputnik, que é uma emissora russa tradicional da Rússia, que cobre notícias internacionais e opera em todos os países do mundo. E agora eu vou falar em inglês com ela e vou legendar. So, Tatiana, it's a pleasure to have you on our program today. How are you doing? Are you okay?
Yeah, all good here.
Okay.
Nice to be with you. Yeah.
I brought you on today because, first of all, to explain a little bit about Sputnik to the Brazilian audience, and then to dispel some of the misinformation that's spreading around right now about Russia, mainly coming from the United States. So if you could just explain to me first, what is Sputnik?
Oh, well, how much time do you have?
Short version.
Sputnik is... short version. Short version, it's two things. It's a newswire. It's a global 24/7 newswire service. And it's also websites and radio. So basically, we are a full functioning news agency, and we have websites which give you a little bit more than a news agency. As you know, that a newswire is something that is directed primarily to journalists, so for the media professionals, and we also have news websites which do a lot more. They do obviously some stuff that we get from our newswires, but we have viral, we have multimedia. We also exist, obviously, on Facebook, Twitter, all social media. So yeah, just a full-on proper website. We actually have a Sputnik in Portuguese as well, so Sputnik Brazil, with headquarters in Rio.
All right, and we use Brazil 247 uses Sputnik as an information source a lot in our news articles, so we appreciate it. But I'd like to talk right now about Russia because, it's an election year in the United States. The Democratic Party has been blaming Russia for its loss to Donald Trump since 2016. And it seems like some, I think, misguided people within the party think that this is a good strategy again to win the elections by blaming everything on Russia. So what I've seen in the last month is more and more negative stories about Russia emanating from the media organizations that are connected to the Democratic Party in the United States, like the New York Times, CNN. And one of them I thought was particularly concerning, which was that Vladimir Putin was hiring bounty hunters or mercenaries in the Taliban to assassinate U.S. soldiers in Afghanistan. Now, first of all, there shouldn't be any U.S. soldiers in Afghanistan to begin with. They're over there shooting at people, okay? But the problem with this article, yeah, right? What do you think was the problem with this story?
Oh, God, where do I begin? First of all, I have to say that basically blaming Russia has become it's a nice little trend, in the US, and it is proving very successful because before this, they were scaring everybody with Russia. And if you have that huge, scaremongering thing going on, then it's very easy to blame any wrongdoing on it as well, of course. But with this story in particular, of course, first of all, yes, there are not supposed to be any US troops in Afghanistan for years now. What they've been pulling out for as long as I can remember. But yes, it's, what is genuinely wrong with any such story, and with most of the stories that concern blaming Russia for, interference in any election or I don't even know what, we've been blamed for, interfering in the German elections, and yet they still choose Chancellor Merkel. We've been interfering in the UK elections, in US elections, you name it. So you got to hand it to Russia. We actually run the world, not the girls, but just Russia. But as any such story, they never really give you any proof. they just cite sources. In this particular case, again, it's the New York Times citing sources that say, that claim, no proof, no hard evidence whatsoever. Just talk, and then we have both the White House, the Pentagon, Donald Trump himself, obviously Russia, saying that there's no proof to that story, that it's just not true, and it does not yield any dividends. I guess the story continues. The media aligned with the Democratic Party just continue their Russia bashing streak, and just in the desperate hope to get to the White House. I don't see any other reason, frankly.
Yeah, what I always tell people is that, if Russia were to be controlling the United States, it would mean it's one of the most intelligent countries in the world, because the GDP of Russia is smaller than the GDP of the greater New York City metropolitan area. The United States is about 20 times richer than Russia. So how could if the United States is so weak that it lets a country that has a 20 times smaller GDP completely control its president like a puppet? Which I have friends, who are Democrats. I don't like Trump or anything. I'm not a Republican at all, but I have friends who are Democrats who tell me that Putin is controlling Donald Trump like a puppet because they read the New York Times. If the US lets a country with a 20 times smaller GDP do that, then maybe it deserves it, but we know it's not happening. I mean, that's the bottom line. We know it's not happening. And we see another story this week that Russia is trying to steal vaccine from the United States, also with no evidence.
Yeah. Well, apparently, the biggest effort was to steal it from the UK, not from the US, from the US as well. But I think that will be my favorite story whatsoever about stealing the vaccine for the coronavirus, because, as you know, Russia actually handled coronavirus. We actually tested people from the very beginning. We didn't go like the UK said, let's build herd immunity, let's just not get any of the measures in. And we had less dead people than the UK, and obviously than the US. We had so much less cases altogether, although the country is huge. But also we were among the first ones to start developing the vaccine. I believe two vaccines in Russia have already passed human trials, the first stage, very successfully. And yet apparently we need to steal something. And we had the head of the Russian Direct Investment Fund, which is involved in developing one of the vaccines. We have numerous vaccines actually being tested as we speak. He actually spoke out yesterday. What he said was that if we're being accused of stealing something, that might mean that, they're so afraid of the fact that our vaccine is going to be just more effective on the market. So they need to accuse us of something in order to, to get some market value to their development. But yes, I think that the vaccine story will generally be my favorite piece of misinformation about Russia and about coronavirus, because I don't know how it goes on in Brazil, but to me as a Russian person, it was a shocking situation, both in the US and in the UK as well, just how they handled coronavirus to begin with. And yet, because our government went on and started testing people from the get-go. Started testing. We went on full-on lockdown. People were not allowed to go out, and people struggled as well. It's always very taxing on the people, but we managed to get out of the situation. Well, for now, we can't say get out for sure, because the virus has obviously not disappeared. But but it was just a very different approach from the government, in general to that problem. They started attacking it very, very aggressively from the beginning, where in the UK, we've actually been observing how it was being handled, and it was just shocking. The testing that was not there, they only started testing when the numbers were already staggering. And well, we're not even touching the US because the number of cases just speaks for themselves.
Yeah. Not to mention that a vaccine should be something given to humanity for free and not a commodity that's guarded like intellectual property rights, But anyway, well, in Brazil, we're copying England and UK and United States. So the situation here is terrible. And, since Brazil's become more and more closely aligned with the US and the Trump administration, we're seeing more and more of this anti-Russia propaganda being circulated in the hegemonic media outlets here in Brazil. What should Brazilian people do when they see a negative story about Russia in the major media outlets?
I think that first of all, we're already quite used to the fact that I beg your pardon, that the year before the election in the US is a very special time. You have to literally filter through the information because the majority of the things that are being said out of Washington, be that one side or the other side, it's just generally targeting the local population. It just all becomes about this election race, and it's just, it's tough to handle for an outsider to just understand that half of it is just purely fighting for votes, nothing else. But when it comes to, blaming Russia for everything and that whole trend, I think that the best thing that I can advise to the Brazilian people is to be able to generally understand that there are agendas that are bigger than than just bringing people information. Any media on the face of the planet has an editorial policy, and one thing that we know for sure about the American media is that they're extremely politicized, and they're extremely everything is extremely editorialized. And just to break away from this this axiom of having that the US media are the media, that to understand that information is about information. It's not about making you, and the media are about making you, giving you information, not making you think a certain way. So just to read different points of view, to read, to watch as many points of view as you can, and then make up your own mind. I think that's the part of the whole process that we're lacking so much, is that we're relying too much on the media to tell us what to think, and that we're kind of forgetting that we need to think for ourselves as well, and that you have to be able to filter off information from political agendas, from geopolitical agendas as well. But generally, within the election year, just relax and observe the circus, so to speak. It's nothing more to it.
Well,
get some popcorn while you're at it as well.
Yeah, that's a good advice, because it is a circus. It's ridiculous. Thanks a lot, and keep up the good work at Sputnik. Okay.
I keep up the good work at TV 24/7. It's it's always very interesting to chat with colleagues. We share the same goals.
Yeah, we do, exactly. Multipolar world. Take it easy.